Hey everybody, James is here from Scionia Games, back with another small update for Operation Hellstorm. In this video I'm going to show you just some changes that we have done to the map itself, and for starters I just wanted to show you our first weapon, how it's coming along, and also make a little bit of a commentary on that. This is to show a little bit of sometimes how hard it is for us to actually with some concepts, depending on the concept itself, like say for example here we have a little bit more detail, which is not something that we're going to be going on 100%, but it's a very it's a better look into what we're aiming towards in terms of creative style and how the characters are going to be. But some concepts we can't really come across as good, because they're much more just kind of like blueprints for the direction, the general direction. Then there's a lot of things that go into place with regards to changes on the actual model as well, and see what fits in, what doesn't fit in. This was the concept, the very, very basic concept for our first weapon, which is with regards to Operation Hellstorm, the way our weapons are, it's one weapon with two weapons in one weapon, actually 2-in-1 weapons. And this here is the basic, the archetype as we call them, and it's the primary weapon, and it's the rocket launcher. And the extensions that can come with it, actually the different selections that you have for adding to that weapon are the first ones that we're going to build are going to be the machine gun extension and the railgun extension. So yeah, and just to show you how this comes along, the actual process itself, this here is what the actual rocket launcher is. This is the final model for the rocket launcher. And that's just to get you an understanding of how from concept it actually changes into something completely different. Sometimes we these are just for idea brainstorming. Sometimes, as you can see, the exhaust has been completely taken out as an idea. I found that it was an outdated idea, and especially for the actual type of weapon and the way that the animation is going to be going, you really don't want to have an exhaust blowing all that fire into the character. And the only way that a model like this will work is if it's actually over your shoulder. So this is our rocket launcher, what it's going to be like, pretty much. This is the rocket launcher archetype. Here is the device, that the railings and the piece that that we're going to place the top view here, the extension, the railgun and the machine gun models on top of that, and we're trying to figure out how the animation is going to go. That means it's going to be coming from behind. Is it going to be twisting onto it? Is it going to be how exactly that extension is going to be a part of the weapon, and how it's going to animate. Which is also going to be the in-game animation, how it's going to be when you actually switch weapons. How is it going to animate from the railgun function to the rocket launcher function? So yeah, I hope you like it. This is the final model, unless we actually see that something needs changing. But went over it a couple times, and there's a lot of detail that has been added to it. This model here is around about just under 8,000 triangles, probably something like 4,000, 5,000 polygons. There's a lot of detail has been added to it. Basically, the only thing that remains now is to actually create the maps for it, which are going to be the normal maps, texture maps, possibly even a detail map. We'll see how it goes. A displacement map, a tessellation map. See how that goes if it needs it. And yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to show you. Really excited that the look is, we got more content to show you with how the look is going to be in game as well. Like this is coming along really nicely. The first weapon here, it's called the Doomsday. That's its name. Okay. The second thing I wanted to show you was some changes to the map itself. After going through it quite a bit on the older version. We tested out a couple of different approaches, and the basic thing that we actually tested out was the map scale. Now, as you can see, you can check the old version as well, the old videos that we have uploaded, the other two. This starting location alone is much smaller. You know, this is the landing port right here, and as you can see, like from the very long edge, you can probably check the other videos out just so you can actually see the difference in the distance. See here, it's much shorter, and we've shrank it down. This here is we're much more comfortable with this size here at the moment. It's at a 72% scale of the original model that we had made, and I think it really is much more fitting. Also for 5 versus 5 players. I mean, if you remember some of my commentary in my previous videos, the stage started feeling as if it was, you know, good enough for even 8 versus 8, but it was a little bit too big, and it kind of ruined the strategy of the whole idea of being able to quickly, you know, be connected from one location to another location. So this is, we tested out 80% scale, 60 just for fun of it, 90 all the iterations between, and we found that 72% scale, this here is probably one of the best sizes. Well, we're really comfortable. It might change again before the final thing. We'll see how it goes. But you can see everything is much smaller. No, not too small, but it is much smaller, and you will notice that on the underground much more once I head down there, which is that area down here. We have the first ramp. You know, the areas are much smaller, and they're still big enough. They're still big enough with a lot of areas, locations for you to hide, go through. You know, we have this area back here, the prison bay to the right over here, and it makes much more sense as well. It kind of feels like it fits the design. I mean, this was, you know, as soon as we changed the size, it just straight away felt right. Straight away, you know, I mean, something was a little bit missing on the old one, and I kept saying that, you know, assets are gonna fix it, assets are gonna fix it, but something wasn't right. So we set out to actually test some of the different scales, and yeah, it was a little bit too big. So this here now is I think it's a much better size, much better scale. You know, and it's still big enough. So you can imagine that, you know, for those that haven't seen the other side, you can imagine that since this here is big enough, what the other one would have been like. And it's much more fun like this as well. I mean, you can actually see that, you know, the corridors, they still have large areas. There's still going to be asset blocks and buildings and things, and hopefully, probably not on the first launch of the map, but later on, most of the assets are going to be breakable as well. You'll be able to shoot through them, destroy them, and stuff like that. You know, you can see it's a much nicer. Let's see if I can make this jump across. Ooh, yeah. It's a much nicer kind of, you know, much more fitting scale. Much better, I think. See if I can make it back across. Nope. That was a long shot. This is the initial. This is the secondary. Where is it? Back here on the bottom. This is the second spawn point for the second team. The bottom spawn point. Instead of calling it first and second, because during the actual design, this one here was meant to be the first spawn point, and then the other one became the first spawn point. And instead of calling them first and second spawn points, this is the bottom spawn point, and the other one at the top, at the other side. Over here is the dark blotch over there is going to be the third, is going to be the top spawn points. It's going to be top and bottom spawn points. That's how we're going to refer to them. Also, there's a small look here into some of our asset building. We have done more, but there hasn't been any textures on them. We're just trying to figure out, you know, the design look, the styling of the rest of the assets, and slowly try to create the feel and the look of the map and what the world is going to be like. And I'm very pleased with this one here, but even this has some very small issues, very small issues that the model itself is creating on some shading, which can't say I'm 100% pleased, but I am quite happy with the result. Nevertheless, it is quite nice, and it's a very good test for what some of the surfaces, well, this is the first surface that we're going to have, what some of the first surfaces are going to be like. That's just a stock metal thing to it. And the bullet holes and the sound. And yeah, this is a show pretty much of, you know, the quality that we're going to. It has a very simple kind of almost not really random. We baked a normal map out of the textures created, and at the same time we've also baked a specular and a gloss map. The gloss map is actually the specular map is it's not from the texture made. It's a proper specular map. The gloss map is a little bit kind of a combination of the specular and the texture map that we made, the diffusion map. You know, so there's you know, we got a very basic, from those we created a very basic normal map. So this is not a proper normal map, and it doesn't have any displacement. As you can see, this area here with all the little wires and stuff, it has a proper specular to it and everything, and hence the reason why it actually does feel as if it's kind of inside. You know, it has different shining to it, shining properties. But this is just a show around about where we headed towards, a little bit on the actual styling and the lighting and how it's going to be. You know, some more details on the texture here, making it a little bit of a bloody. You know, so yeah, hopefully this is a show of the quality that we're aiming towards. I mean, that there's one of the things that I was not saying that I really don't like. It's really getting to me. And that's created from the actual, the tessellation of the model itself. The model doesn't have these kind of shadows, and it is really a bit of a pain. I did find a way to fix it. At some point I fixed it, but then I went back to another model, and then I went back and forth a couple more times, and yeah, at some point I think I kept this one here. So we're gonna have to obviously make a couple of small improvements to those there, which I don't know if it's a real problem. It is to me. It is to me. When I see it, like, you know, I'm running around and I see that jagged shadow there, it's a problem. You know, this is supposed to be, for me, it is a problem. Someone else might not really see it as a problem. As you can see, it's not supposed to be like that. It's, the model itself is pretty darn smooth and doesn't have those. Anyway, so you can see the model itself. Trying to keep a good balance on how many polygons there are going to be on the assets, and of course create the distance, draw distances of when they disappear. Hopefully speed this up a little bit. You can see the asset at some point. Oh, it's always there. Okay, that's not right. It's supposed to have disappeared a long time ago. You know, there's a draw distance on our assets as well. And oh, it also has collision. You can probably notice that as I run over, I just bump up a little bit, bump down. Maybe better notice if we go crouching, go up, down. So yeah, it's for a first asset, for a first test, it's complete. I'm gonna keep it. Not sure if I can fix those little things that are really annoying me. Those shadows that you can't see all the time. I mean, most of the time you can see the model is pretty nicely, you know, pretty nicely detailed, and the rest of it is okay. But at some points, there, back in here, it creates some of those, which are created from the shadows that are actually bounced off from the actual geometry itself. It's got nothing to do with the maps. It's got to do with the geometry and the way that the tessellation was created on them. So let's see if we can work on those out. Yeah, just to finish off looking around on the map, as you can see, it's much more. It's handier. I think I like it. I like it much better. It's smaller. You know, you can see people easier. It's much easier to keep your view and your wits around you. And it also makes for rocket jumping and stuff like that easier for more locations. You know, everything feels much. It feels normal. It feels proper. This was too large before. You could walk through this before, whereas the initial intention, the idea of this was never to be able to walk into it. It was just that you can. It's kind of aesthetically there, but it can be used for an off chance of being able to tactically deploy something. You can, you know, throw a grenade underneath or something. You know, little things like that. But it was mostly just for looks. You know, and you could actually walk through that and drop through that before. All these here, they were too big. All these areas were much too large. The drops were too far. This one here now, it feels much more normal. There's going to be an elevator here. Even the ramp was, the map was so big that the ramp, as you ran up, it actually slowed you down. Now that's not a good thing. I mean, of course, we're going to change the physics around and make a. We're not going to create new physics. We're going to work on the physics of the CryEngine because it does have some of the best physics that I have ever worked with regards to its base model. We're going to increase some of the speeds, run speeds and stuff like that, and implement all the effects for the weapons and how they push you, so we can actually create the rocket jumping and stuff like that. And hopefully at some point, one of the things that we want to add to this game, I don't think I've mentioned this before, is strafe jumping, which I don't know how much that's possible with keeping a lot of the physics intact. Not that it isn't possible, but it might actually compromise some of the physics of the engine already, which we like. So at that point, we'll see if we can actually make our own version of a strafe jump, a simplified strafe jump perhaps, that can actually fit into this, simplified with regards to the Quake version of strafe jumping. But I don't think it will be simple at all, since, you know, the whole physics engine and everything is already, it's already quite an advanced design way, the way the engine works. See if we can balance out probably a blend of both. If we can have proper strafe jumping without sacrificing or without ruining a lot of the other physics that we want to be that we want part of the game, then yeah, by all means, strafe jumping is awesome. We want to have strafe jumping in this game. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Some of the issues that we have, of course, now, but since we shrank the stage down. Oh, and there's one more thing I want to cover before I end this video. Like I was saying, one of the issues that we noticed is that everything's a little bit smaller, obviously, which means that in some locations you the runaround, being able to have like an obstacle, pseudo obstacle course for the way you get to locations is kind of less with regards to before. I mean, you come up here, before you had to come. This was the only way of getting up, and the only way of getting up to the roof was jumping onto the pipe. This is going to be a gas pipe, and then jumping up to here. Now with the new model, you can actually, you can probably jump on this as well. Yep, you can jump there. You can probably jump here too. Yep. Probably can't jump here though. No, you can. Tested out before and I couldn't jump up here. Now I can. Let's see from this side. Yep. And instead of going up on that pipe, you just jump straight away on top of it, which makes a little bit, you know, kind of makes the whole pipe and the whole thing there just have no point. You can just come across here. That little passage there has no point. You can just jump across up on top of here. Jump, jump, and that's it. You're right up on the top. So we're going to fix a couple of these things without actually changing the size, but with implementing assets. I mean, you can create here an edge that comes outwards, and conveniently maybe even make a ramp here that blocks things out, you know, which is not part of the map geometry, so we can create assets that will block your way in and out. We can make ramps up here as well, like little railings, and you can't jump through them. But because they're not part of the collision of the map, it gives us the possibility of making them like proper railings that you can actually see through them and shoot through them, and you know, hopefully when we add at some point our destructible models. Some of these you might be able to destroy them as well. So yeah, and the second thing, or the last thing that I wanted to cover, was the lighting. That is another change that we made. We found that it was a little bit too dark. We do want it to be dark, and we do want it to be dark also with regards to the light that kind of hits your vision, which is very much kind of akin to realism when you have something like that, you know. When you actually, I'll show you what I mean. Like I had shown in the previous video, this is actually on high difficulty. Yeah, this is on high detail, not very high, so it's a little bit lower. It's running currently at about 50 frames per second. That's found what the problem was with my computer as well. I have a burst fan, so it's overheating pretty fast, and that's why I have a frame loss. And I was wondering why, because I can run pretty much anything on high-end graphics, including Crysis 3. And lately, it's been really bogging on me. It's been going slower and slower, and that's the reason why it's been compromised heating in the actual system itself. So that should be fixed in a couple of no time, whenever I get a chance around it. Anyway, like I was saying, see here, it's a very strategic point for someone to hide in there, but it's not that it's a really dark location. And there, it's pretty good for someone hiding in there. And in there, it's not that it's a very dark location. When you come here, it gets even darker. Because when you come around here, you see that it's not that dark at all. It's definitely not as dark as it used to be. It's much lighter. As you can see, we have increased the lighting. This whole area is much easier to see it. But just with regards to realism per se, when you have a strong light in your line of sight, areas that have a weaker lighting, they become darker, obviously, and that is some of the things that we want to play with when it comes to concealment. So it's not that we want to, just to get this straight, it's not that we want to have a map where there's a whole bunch of black areas and people can just go and, hey, nobody can see me, and just stay there. We want them to be able to use it dynamically on the go, and it's going to give you an advantage for one location or for one specific confrontation, which means that everything is on the run. Everything is always constantly moving around, figuring out what works for you, what doesn't. Some locations, they don't conceal you at all. It just makes you a little bit harder to see. We don't have bright models and glowing models like in Quake Live and some other games. We're not on board with that option for our game, so it's not going to be part of our game. Therefore, it's already, that whole realism already is going to compromise your eyesight, your vision. But as I was saying, it's not that we want to create locations in dark corners that you can just go here and, okay, nobody sees me, I can just sit here for the rest of the game. Clearly, anybody that comes around here can see you quite easily. You're quite obvious. And the only people that can't see you is someone that's going to be with more light in their eyes. For example, even if I come back here, I can probably still see him right there in the corner. Jump to the side, I can see you even more. Here, I can't see him at all. So that's the whole point of the strategy, the way that a lot of the lighting, we want to work on it. We want to make it able to conceal you, but not in a ridiculous fashion. We want to make it realistic, and at the same time make awareness part of the game, that you can actually see the other player model, not have broken elements in the map where somebody can just go into a spot and hide there, and that's it, end of the story. They don't have to move, and people have to keep doing checks on that location with firing at it to see if anyone's there. No, we want you to be able to see your opponents, of course. We just want to make it more realistic in the way you see them. I mean, obviously, even this here, it's nicely lit. It has a lot of lights all over the place, but when you're going quickly through it, and with all the assets they're going to be, with the way that they're going to have the textures on them and everything, somebody running down there, it could miss you. You could just not spot them. They might just run onto that corner. Whereas with a game like Quake Live, for example, there'll be a bright green model, and even if you're just not even noticing, you'll notice a green blotch down there just quickly hiding. Whereas this way, you don't notice them, and that is really a huge advantage and part of the gameplay, what we want to be part of the game. You know, we don't want you to notice everybody straight away where they're going and what they're doing, because that also adds a little bit to the fear of the tactics and, you know, figuring out what's your opponent doing, where are they, I can't see them, you know, I mean, are they hiding somewhere, did I maybe almost see them go into a different location, you know, all those kind of little questions and things that can be added to part of the gameplay and the strategy to the game. So yeah, we have made the map a little bit brighter. We have increased the, you might say, sunlight. It's not really a sun, or a star, yeah, sunlight, I guess. We have increased it, so all the exterior locations, they do have more light on them. As you can see here, these here have more light on them, all these locations. This side here is a lot brighter than what we initially wanted it to be, actually, but that's going to be fixed obviously with the textures, and it's nice to actually see that we got the lighting mode working, I think, on a much better scale. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Smaller map, one of the basic things that we've done. Improved lighting model. We have actually changed the lights on a lot of locations, a lot of areas. We've reduced some lights, we've added a couple other lights, we've changed their you know, their whole range and a whole bunch of stuff, you know, how much, where they actually reach, what each light covers and stuff like that. And you know, hopefully make for a much better lighting model to this game. This one here is also, again, as it was before, is a strategic point, much smaller than before. Everybody can come at you at closer locations, which gives it, as initially intended, an even smaller advantage than what it should have had. But it does have an advantage in certain areas and a disadvantage in other areas. So yeah, all part of the basic, this is like basic concept balancing for the basic map. Later on we're going to balance it all out with the way that the assets are going to be added to the map itself, how we're going to go about it. I mean, this here is not going to be an empty location. What you can hide behind, what you can actually, you know, dodge through, and all the things that you can actually do, you know, figure it out and balance it all nicely. This here is still a dark location as it was intended, so everything is still intact, pretty much in place. Down there, some more darker locations that you have to really focus to see if someone is there. You know, the more light that's in your eyes, the darker our location becomes. And I think it's in a very nice spot. We're at a nice place at the moment. Our first asset, our first included asset, we have a couple more. We're not at a place of being able to actually show them right now. Also working on the first model, first character model. And yeah, hopefully there'll be more balancing. I love putting bullets in this. Anyway, hopefully we'll be able to agree on the actual basic map, what it's like, and then go into further balancing with regards to all the assets that are going to be added. Like, for example, one of the things that I had mentioned was having specific assets that you can hide behind, like here and back here, that will actually block your view of the first spawn point, which is that down there, which makes this location up here very overpowered, and we don't want you to have that advantage. It's too much, there's no point to it. And yeah, what kind of blocks? I mean, there might be crates, machines, I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to go into. We're still collecting on the kind of assets and type of assets we want to be using in the game. So what happened here? I hit the map. Okay, perfect. So yeah, it's pretty fun the way it is at the moment, really enjoying it. So the only thing that remains now is to actually fix the assets into it. There are some things that need a little bit of fixing as well. One of those was this part up here, which creates a little gap, and the other one was let's get quickly to it. This one here, which again creates a map between there. So, you know, fix some of these little issues, which I'm not too concerned with these at the moment, because all these are going to be filled up with proper assets. This is just a basic collision. This model here is not going to be visible at all. It's going to be rendered invisible, and the collision is the only thing that's going to remain. So it's going to be the main collision model is going to be intact, and everything is going to be, all the assets and the way that everything is going to be created is going to be placed on top of this, which means that we can also add extra things. The ramps that I said, you know, and all the extra stuff, you know, that can also close little gaps and stuff like that, and, you know, which is going to be pretty much the look of the map itself. Right now it's very plain, just one colored block, a bunch of blocks all over the place. You know what I mean? Which create a lot of ugly geometry in some locations as well, like here. You know, this is just a collision map. Obviously, we're not going to keep to this. You won't be able to see this at all. All these are going to be laid out with completely new, different assets. Everything is going to be changed. This here, for example, as we're starting, we have, let's go down here. We've actually made probably the basic design of the first launchpad. We've probably done like 70% of the design of all the assets that are going to be placed into it for the ground. So all this here is going to be filled up with assets, how the floor is going to be, what every single part is going to be like, and hopefully it will all kind of feel like that metallic surface there, which is also going to be a good testing ground for us with what it looks like all together. And if it looks good, if something about it doesn't fit in, if we don't like the way some of the lighting bounces, we'll figure it out on the go, fix the shining, the reflectance, all the stuff. I'm trying to make sure that we get the result that we really want. So we're at that phase now. We're at the phase of testing a little bit the map, creating assets so we can actually see where the direction is going to be going on towards, and keep them as a reference for the rest of the game afterwards, for the rest of the map first of all, and actually just for the rest of this map, because each map is going to be a little bit different and have different assets to it, different tile sets. So keep it as a reference to the rest of the map, and then go into building all the assets with absent textures, just so we can test out the map, how it's going to be like with all the assets in it. We're at the phase where we're making the weapon, and we also at the phase of creating the first model. The weapon is actually complete. The first, as I showed you, the first archetype. It's where are we? This one here, the rocket launcher, Doomsday. This is complete. The only thing that's missing from it at the moment is the railgun extension and the machine gun extensions, the first two extensions to this weapon. So we're making those as well. That's pretty much the phase that we're at the moment. You know, putting all those into it and slowly building content for the game. The look. We're trying to get the look of the game at the moment, because the physics and that side of it, we're not that concerned, because to be honest with you, that's not the biggest bulk of the game. I mean, of course, yes, the gameplay is very important. It is very important to us. It is the most important part of the game. But you can always implement it, and you can spend, like, say, if it's going to take you 1 year to make the game, or at least a portion of the game, it's more than enough to create the implementation for the physics and, you know, the whole movement. It's a first-person shooter game. It's based on a first-person shooter engine. There's nothing hard about it. It's more than enough time. However, with regards to assets and building the actual map and what that looks like, even 1 year is not enough sometimes, because it's just a matter of how much detail you're going to put, how many assets are you going to put, how many items are there going to be. We have 12 archetype weapons that we want to build and 11 extensions, and the extensions are going to be a little bit different. Going to have some elements to them that are going to be modeled a little bit differently for each archetype weapon. So, you know, that creates for like something like 90 something combinations, weapon loadout combinations and stuff. But even without those combinations, the models alone themselves, that's 12 weapons plus 11. That is 23 weapons that we have right there for you. And that's a lot of modeling. That's a lot of, coming up with those things. We want to make a lot of characters to the game. So the sooner we get into the asset building and figure out what the foundation is, the sooner we get the first weapon, the first model, the first look out there, and we've figured that out, that is the most important part to us, because then we can, as we're implementing the gameplay and the physics and all that stuff, we can have a part of the team always working on assets and always working on characters and new weapons and figuring out the rest of the visual content of the game, whilst another part of the team is just working on the gameplay, balancing the maps out and all that stuff. So yeah, it's very important for us, the phase that we're at the moment, to make sure that we get the visual side of things spot on, right where we want it. We are aiming at top-end graphics, of course. This does not mean that we're trying to make the most polygon counts ever. We're not trying to make the most realistic game ever. We're not trying to top Crysis or Doom 3 when it comes out, or whatever else is out there in the market. It means that we're going to deliver top-end graphics with regards to what we're trying to create. Not just our abilities, but with what we believe looks good. We want to strike a balance between creative design and also realism, and that's just really the fun part of all of this, being able to create worlds that can immerse you, and you can become a part of and really enjoy them, and in the future go on into making single-player campaigns for this game as well, which is really something I really want to get into once the arena side of it is completed and fixed and finished. So yeah, that was this update. Hopefully a little bit shorter, and hopefully as we go, each devlog will be even shorter, so I don't tire you, and be able to keep you updated on what we're making. And obviously some of the tasks that we're taking on from this point forward are actually a little bit more time consuming, so we might get larger delays between all our updates, our developer logs. That's it. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave comments and opinions and ideas of what you actually think of the direction and what it's actually going towards. And yeah, I'll see you next time. This was James from Scionia Games.